In the depths of a forgotten historical site, a chilling tale unfolds. Prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown as we investigate the paranormal activity surrounding a restless spirit, uncovering the secrets that haunt this place. It's a cold, moonless night when the camera pans over a crumbling stone wall, its surface streaked with age, moss creeping over its surface like the fingers of time itself. The wind howls through the empty streets of the town below, its shrill cry blending with the eerie silence of the forgotten historical site. The camera shifts, revealing the towering silhouette of an old mansion, its windows dark, its doors long sealed shut. History is full of secrets. Some are whispered in hushed tones in dark corners, and some are so unsettling that they linger in the air long after the people involved are gone. Some secrets refuse to die. This is the beginning of a chilling journey into the unknown, where we uncover a haunting that has plagued a forgotten place for over a century. This is the ghost of a forgotten past, a spirit trapped between the realms of the living and the dead. Tonight, we dive deep into the mystery of the ghost of Grange Hall, a place where history's shadows still linger, and the line between the paranormal and the real is blurred. Grange Hall, once the grand estate of the Montgomery family, stands as a silent sentinel to a dark history that no one dares speak of. Situated on the outskirts of a quiet town in the rolling hills of the English countryside, the mansion is a relic of the past, its once beautiful gardens overgrown, and its ivy-covered walls now a tomb of time. But within its walls, a restless spirit roams, a spirit that has haunted this place for generations. The legend of the haunting began in 1885, when the youngest Montgomery heir, Elizabeth Montgomery, mysteriously vanished without a trace. Despite the exhaustive search, no trace of Elizabeth was ever found. Some say she was the victim of foul play. Others whisper that she died of heartbreak after being jilted by her lover, a local nobleman named Edward Hargrave. But no one knew for certain. The mansion's once grand halls grew silent, and the land around Grange Hall was abandoned. The haunting began shortly thereafter. For years, locals spoke of eerie lights in the windows at night, soft whispers drifting through the halls, and the sound of footsteps echoing in the dead of night. The most chilling account came from a traveling historian who claimed to have seen a young woman in white, standing in the window, her face pale with sorrow. But who was the woman? Was it Elizabeth Montgomery, still searching for answers? Or was it someone or something else? Over the years, countless individuals have come into contact with the haunting presence of Grange Hall, but the most compelling accounts come from those who dared to spend the night within its decaying walls. In 1921, a group of archaeologists spent weeks at the mansion, hoping to uncover the secrets buried within. One of them, Professor Richard Aldridge, recounted a particularly terrifying night. He had been alone in the library when he heard a faint knock on the door. Thinking it was his colleagues, he opened it only to find the hallway empty. As he turned back to his desk, the sound of soft breathing filled the room. He spun around, expecting to find one of the team members standing behind him, but the room was empty. The temperature in the room dropped sharply, and his breath came out in visible puffs. "I could feel her presence," Aldridge recalled in his journal. "It was as though I had awakened something that should have been left alone." More recently, in 2010, a paranormal investigation team spent a night at Grange Hall, capturing footage of what appeared to be a shadowy figure moving in the darkened corridors. The team's lead investigator, Clara Williams, described the event as both exhilarating and terrifying. "There was something malevolent in the air," she said. "The moment we set up our equipment, the temperature dropped. Then we saw it, a figure flickering in and out of existence." So who or what is haunting Grange Hall? To understand this haunting, we must go back to the tragic disappearance of Elizabeth Montgomery. Her story, though shrouded in mystery, holds the key to the haunting's origin. Elizabeth was known for her beauty and charm, the pride of the Montgomery family. But beneath her public persona, she harbored a deep secret, an affair with Edward Hargrave, the man who would one day betray her. When Elizabeth's father, Lord Montgomery, found out about the affair, he forbade her from seeing Edward. Desperate, Elizabeth ran away from home to be with her lover, but when she arrived at his estate, she was met with heartbreak. Edward had married another woman, and Elizabeth, heartbroken and enraged, disappeared from the face of the earth. Some say she ran away, unable to cope with the shame. Others believe she met a tragic end, either by her own hand or at the hands of someone else. Yet, her disappearance remained unsolved. The police investigated, but all leads went cold. Elizabeth's body was never found, and her love story was left to rot in the annals of history. But Elizabeth Montgomery's story didn't end there. It lived on, fueled by whispers of her ghost wandering the halls of Grange Hall, a woman scorned, forever searching for closure. Could Elizabeth have died at the hands of her lover? Was her betrayal the catalyst for her spirit's restless journey? In recent years, the ghost of Grange Hall has become a subject of intense interest for both paranormal investigators and historians. The evidence gathered during modern investigations is compelling. Audio recordings of disembodied voices, photographs of ghostly figures, and even temperature fluctuations that suggest an otherworldly presence. One of the most intriguing pieces of evidence came from a recent investigation by the renowned paranormal team, Spectral Sightings. During their visit, they set up a series of motion-detecting cameras throughout the mansion. In the dead of night, a figure was captured moving through the Grand Hall. A figure that, when analyzed, appeared to be dressed in a period-specific gown, eerily similar to the one Elizabeth Montgomery was known to wear. The evidence is clear, says Dr. Emily Carter, a historian who has studied Grange Hall extensively. We have proof of paranormal activity at the site, and while we can't explain everything, it's clear that something or someone lingers there. As the investigation continues, many believe the truth behind the haunting is not just paranormal, but also psychological. Could the trauma from the past, Elizabeth's abandonment and betrayal, have left an imprint on the mansion? Some experts propose that the mansion itself may be a vessel for the unresolved emotions of its former inhabitants. But the questions remain. What truly happened to Elizabeth Montgomery? Was her death a tragic accident, or was it a crime of passion? And more importantly, why does her spirit linger in the halls of Grange Hall? The investigation has only just begun, and with every new discovery, the mystery deepens. Is it possible that the answers we seek lie buried within the very walls of the mansion, waiting to be uncovered? Or will the ghost of Elizabeth Montgomery continue to haunt Grange Hall, forever trapped in the past? In a final attempt to uncover the truth, a group of investigators ventured into the mansion once more, determined to find closure. As they entered the mansion's grand foyer, they were met with an unnerving silence, the kind that sends chills down your spine. The temperature had dropped, and the air was thick with tension. Suddenly, a door slammed shut, and the sound of footsteps echoed through the halls. The investigators followed the sound, their hearts pounding in their chests, until they reached a small, hidden room in the back of the mansion. Inside, they discovered something horrifying, an old, rotting diary belonging to none other than Elizabeth Montgomery. The final entry read, "I will never leave this place. My love, my betrayal, none of it will be forgotten. I will wait forever for the one who wronged me to come and make things right." The door slammed shut behind them, trapping them in the room. And then, everything went black. The investigators sat in stunned silence, surrounded by the thick, oppressive darkness of Grange Hall. The only sound was the eerie echo of their breathing and the ominous creaking of the ancient wooden beams above. The discovery of Elizabeth Montgomery's diary had shaken them to their core. But as they fumbled in the dark, their hands trembling, they realized the real horror was not in the words written on the pages. It was in what they'd just encountered. The door to the hidden room had slammed shut with a deafening force, trapping them inside. No matter how hard they pushed, pulled, or kicked, the door refused to budge. The air grew colder with each passing second, and an overwhelming sense of dread settled over them. And then the whispering began. A soft, feminine voice, barely audible, seemed to float through the walls. Words that no one could quite understand, but the tone was unmistakable. It was full of sorrow, desperation, and something far darker. "You shouldn't have come," it whispered, sending chills down their spines. "He'll never forgive you. You'll never leave." For a moment, the investigators froze. Was it the ghost of Elizabeth Montgomery speaking? Or was it something else entirely? The investigators had no choice but to break the silence and keep pushing forward, desperate to make sense of the eerie presence surrounding them. One of the team members, a psychic named Amanda, insisted that the spirit of Elizabeth was trying to communicate something important, a message from beyond the grave. But there was no time to wait for answers. They needed to escape before the mansion consumed them, as it had so many others. But as they turned to leave, they noticed something strange. The room they were locked in had changed. The walls, once bare, were now lined with old portraits of the Montgomery family, each one staring down at them with hollow eyes. Among them, one portrait stood out, that of a young woman, dressed in a white gown, her expression sorrowful and distant. It was Elizabeth Montgomery. As they examined the portrait, something caught their eye, a subtle detail in the background. Behind Elizabeth, half hidden in shadow, was a figure, a man whose face was barely visible, but whose silhouette was unmistakable. The investigators leaned in closer, their hearts racing. Was that Edward Hargrave, the man responsible for Elizabeth's heartbreak? Was he the one who had driven her to her tragic fate? With the chilling realization that the mystery was far deeper than they had imagined, they made a fateful decision. They would follow the trail back to Edward Hargrave, the man whose actions seemed to have sealed Elizabeth's fate. But as they dug deeper into Hargrave's past, the truth became even more unsettling. Edward Hargrave was not just a nobleman. He was a man with a history of manipulation, deceit, and betrayal. He had been known for his ruthless dealings, not just in love, but in business. In fact, Hargrave's wealth had come at a steep price. His dealings with Lord Montgomery, Elizabeth's father, were fraught with underhanded schemes. Some suggested that Hargrave had stolen valuable land from the Montgomery family, all while pretending to court Elizabeth to secure his position as a future heir. But what the investigators uncovered next was even more shocking. A letter, hidden away in Hargrave's private journal, addressed to Elizabeth herself. The contents were chilling. "I will never be yours, Elizabeth. My heart belongs to another. Your beauty was a convenience, not a love. You will be forgotten. You always were." The investigators now realized the full extent of Hargrave's cruelty. It wasn't just a lover's betrayal. It was an orchestrated effort to manipulate and break Elizabeth emotionally, leaving her with nothing. It was no wonder that her spirit, full of rage and heartbreak, could not find peace. The search for truth led the investigators back to Grange Hall, where they now understood that the mansion itself held the answers they sought. The walls, steeped in history, had absorbed not just the anger of Elizabeth, but also the guilt and malice of those who had wronged her. As they stood in the very room where the portraits hung, the investigators began to piece together the final moments of Elizabeth's life. They found no trace of her body, but they did uncover something more damning, a hidden journal, belonging to one of the estate workers who had been present at the time of Elizabeth's disappearance. In the journal, the worker detailed a secret meeting between Elizabeth and Edward Hargrave, a final confrontation that took place in the mansion's library. According to the journal, Elizabeth had arrived at Grange Hall to confront Hargrave about his betrayal. But instead of the reunion she hoped for, she was met with cold rejection. Edward, in his ruthless manner, had coldly told her that she was no longer needed and that he would do anything to erase her from his life. In a fit of rage, Elizabeth had stormed out, vowing to ruin him. The worker's final entry described a sound, a scream, that echoed through the halls, followed by the sudden silence that had descended over Grange Hall. It was in this silence that Elizabeth Montgomery's fate was sealed. No one knew for certain whether she had been killed, or if she had taken her own life in the face of such betrayal, but one thing was clear. Her spirit had been left behind, forever trapped in the mansion where her heart had broken. The paranormal investigation team, now more determined than ever to bring peace to Elizabeth's restless spirit, decided to hold one final séance in the mansion's grand hall. As the night stretched on, their equipment began to pick up strange readings, lights flickering, objects moving seemingly on their own, and cold drafts brushing against their skin. But it wasn't until the EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, recorder was turned on that they captured something they would never forget: the unmistakable sound of a woman's voice, speaking through the static. "I was never loved. I was never enough." The voice, faint and distant, was undeniably Elizabeth's. And for the first time, the investigators realized the full tragedy of her story. Elizabeth's death had been a consequence of love unreturned, her betrayal at the hands of the man she trusted. Her spirit had never been at rest, because the answers she sought were never truly found. But as the voice faded, the investigators knew one thing for sure: Elizabeth Montgomery had finally been heard. In the weeks following the investigation, Grange Hall was left in peace. The paranormal activity ceased, and the town slowly returned to normal, though some residents still speak in hushed tones of the mansion's dark past. But the impact of Elizabeth's haunting lingered on. For the investigators, it was a sobering reminder of the trauma that can persist long after a person is gone. Elizabeth's story, once shrouded in mystery, had been uncovered, but the emotional toll of her betrayal was something that would haunt all who heard it. For the Montgomery family, and for Edward Hargrave's descendants, the revelations were nothing short of devastating. Their forebears had lived in a world of lies and manipulation, and the price of their actions was now laid bare for the world to see. And yet, There was a lingering question. Had Elizabeth's spirit truly found peace, or was this just the beginning of a new chapter in her haunting? As the final lights of the mansion flickered out, one thing was certain. The ghost of Grange Hall would never be forgotten. Want to dive deeper into the mysteries of the past? Share your thoughts on Elizabeth's haunting, and tell us what you think really happened that night at Grange Hall. Don't forget to follow and subscribe for more stories of history's darkest secrets.